Okay, so for those of you that just joined us, my name is CJ. I'm one of the co-organizers of this meetup, and I'm also going to be your moderator tonight. And the idea behind this is it is a community roundtable. And so I've prepared some topics and some things that we'll dive into first, but then after I get done yapping, it's everyone else's turn. And we have the spatula of speaking. So if you want to say something, please use that because it's very hard to hear in here. Yeah, so when we get to that time, raise your hand. Marlena, other co-organizer, will bring that to you. When we start, I'm going to get a quick lay of the land and see what everyone's familiarity with AI, because I am an explainer, and it's okay if you don't know things, and I'm going to kind of default to explaining things anyways, so it's okay to not know things, it's okay to ask if you don't know. This is a safe space, nobody's going to laugh at you. If anything, we're all going to learn something. Does that sound good? Let's do it. All right. First of all, let's talk about AI in general. And I'd like to know, I guess, how much AI is everyone using? So I guess we'll start on the far end. Who here, well, first of all, who here is technical? Who here writes code? Okay, majority of the audience, cool. Okay, so who does not write code by hand anymore? Who's using nothing but AI and agents? Okay, it's probably 40-ish% of the audience, maybe a little less. Okay, who is using at least like an agentic editor, like VS Code with the chat window, and you allow it to like edit your files and create new files. Who's at least doing that? Okay, like 80%. Okay. And then who is not using any dev tools at all, and maybe just are you using like ChatGPT, or who's using no AI at all? Okay, yeah, that's the far end of the spectrum. two people with no AI. Okay, I think we'll have something for everyone, and it's good to know. Yeah, so that seems to, I've been to several conferences recently, and that kind of seems to be the split. Like, the people that are using nothing but AI are probably the loudest. No offense to you in the room, but there's a lot of hype around letting AI write all of your code. I would say I'm probably more 60-70% of most of my code written by AI, but I'm writing a lot of stuff by hand as well. And we kind of talked about, we sort of got into this, but let's talk about this. So who is using an IDE like VS Code or Cursor or Kiro to write your code? Okay, that looks about like 80% of the room. Who is using a CLI? So like think Claude Code, Gemini CLI, what are the other ones? Yell them out.
Copilot CLI?
Codex, what did you say?
Copilot CLI?
Copilot, yeah, I haven't used that one. Copilot, Codex, actually let me write these out. So the one that I mentioned first is Claude. I'll show a demo of that tonight. There's the Gemini CLI, which is from Google. There's Codex, which is from OpenAI. They do ChatGPT. You mentioned the Copilot CLI. I'm guessing that's from VS Code.
Yeah, I've only used it once, so I haven't quite figured out really if there's any more features to it than just actually.
Probably not.
Yeah, it's just a different UI. That's it.
Copilot is just.
Yeah.
Okay. What did I miss? What are the ones?
Doesn't Kiro have a CLI?
Oh, they do. I just installed Kiro today to show it off. They do. I haven't used it. Any other ones? Cool. There's a lot of them out there. Oh, you're totally right. That's the one that I use. I can't believe I didn't mention it. Yes. Cool. And then they're also like web-based. And actually, that's probably why I didn't mention OpenCode, because I actually use OpenCode through their web interface instead of their CLI. But these are things like, what is it? Lovable, yeah. Well, yeah, these are like pure vibe coding tools. Let's actually put that in a separate category. Because these type of tools are kind of meant, for the most part, for non-technical people. If you want to get serious, you kind of have to pull your code down from there and then start using some of these other tools. But yeah, there's Lovable. What are some other vibe coding ones? Google AI Studio, yep. vSphere, that's one of the, it's from Vercel, yeah. Well, any others?
Where would you put N8N?
N8N, oh, workflow? Or like, they're kind of like, yeah, No code. I think no code is probably the best category for this. But in 8N, let's get some visuals. So first of all, let's look at if you've never seen, who's never seen Lovable before. Cool. This is everything your parents will be using to build apps. So you go to the landing page and you say, I want to build an app that tells me when there is a Rockies game, so I know to prepare for traffic. Oh, I have to log in. Okay. Well, let me save that prompt just in case. But the idea is you prompt it, and then it just starts building. So I don't know if it has, I don't know if Lovable in particular has preferred technology stack that it uses. It does.
It very much does. Yeah.
Okay. I think can you tell it to use anything you want though, or?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay. I just know that, so like V0, one thing you'll notice about all these tools is their landing page looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
What do you want to build today? What's the other one you mentioned?
Google AI Studio.
Yeah. It's aistudio.google.com. And then in here they have
The build section.
where is it? New app. Yes. Describe the app you want to build with Gemini. There's also Chef. Yeah, by Convex. So Convex is a tool for like a database tool of sorts. But they built their own vibe coding tool that uses their database tool. But the idea is you got a prompt, you just say, let's build this thing, and then it goes off. And it will just start building. And then you'll have a working app like in the browser. Another one is bolt.new, I believe. Yeah, what do you want to build today? And you'll notice all of these have let me sign up for free and haven't asked for money yet, but they are like credit based. So like you'll start prompting and then eventually it'll be like top up. But yeah, this is very much for non-technical users. They do have a way to look at the code, but it's a lot harder to like modify the code. Basically, any change you want to make, you have to prompt to make that change. So yeah, so these are on the far end of versus writing code ourselves. These are vibe coding tools, as it were. Cool. And then in terms of CLIs, well, I guess I'll just show you. What I'm using right now is an IDE. We'll start there. So this is known as VS Code. Who here uses VS Code? Most people. Does anybody use Cursor? Yeah, I'm like half and half too. Actually, I haven't launched Cursor since they added like the agents window, so I have no idea how to use it anymore. But this is an editor running on my machine. I have access to all my files. This is what I'm very used to when I'm building apps. But it has this chat window, and I can actually chat with it and tell it to build me an app, or it can look at files that are in the folder here, or create new files, that kind of thing. And so this is a much more like closer to the metal way of working with AI because I'm in charge of all the files. Whereas you'll see, oh wow, we've got an app, the Rockies traffic alert. And today there's a traffic warning. It's the Rockies versus the Boston Red Sox. Amazing. Is that true though? I saw people still walking to the stadium. Did it start at 1? Tomorrow. Hallucinations are one thing that happens.
And dates and times.
And dates and times, yeah. But what hopefully we'll talk about eventually is how you can not have these types of hallucinations in the apps that you're building. But fascinating. I literally prompted one thing, I get myself back an app. And then all of these platforms, they basically make money by, first of all, giving you access to AI. Like this is probably using ChatGPT behind the scenes, like GPT-5 or something like that. And the way that they make money is by charging you for credits. In turn, it's just using OpenAI. And then if you want to deploy this thing, I do believe they have like a deployment service and you'll pay for your app like living in the cloud as well. Yeah, so that's that. These are IDEs. Let's talk about terminal interfaces. So I'm in this directory. I'm going to use Claude. And this started to get popular like middle of last year. What do you all think? Like, yeah. So for a time, it was kind of just use the chat window in your editor, and then it was like let AI do everything from the command line. And so I guess a lot of people that are used to using Vim or other types of like CLI-based tools, they definitely liked using a tool like this. But let's, here's the other thing, I'm paying credits to do an LS. Yeah, so that just costed us like 10 cents to list my directory. I think there's a way, there's a command that's like CLI run, is it run? No, I don't know, there's a way to drop back down to the terminal. But I think what I'm gonna do is actually launch this inside the directory, so let's make a directory for today.
You can do an exclamation point in whatever terminal you run.
Good call. This is why it's a community night. Thank you. We all learned something. So if I want to do an LS, shell mode. There we go. Sick. Okay. So shell mode. Let's make a directory. Actually, I could tell it to do that, but I kind of want to launch it inside that directory because it's going to do a bunch of stuff inside of there. So I'm going to create this directory for today, and then kill it, and then start it inside of that directory. Okay, so let's honestly use the same prompt. I want to build an app that tells me when there's a Rockies game, so I can prepare for traffic. But one of the cool things about tools like this is they also have what's called plan mode. Who here uses plan mode? 80% of the audience, cool. Basically, this will, instead of immediately start building, it's going to be like, okay, I see that you want to do that. Now let's figure out how we're going to do that. So plan mode won't write any code at all. It's going to make a plan for how to build this thing, and it might even ask me questions like, what do you want to build this with? Do you want to use React? Do you want to use Vue? Do we need a backend? What API are we going to call? It'll very likely ask me questions before it starts building as well. And I can answer them, and then it will just start building. It'll start creating the files. It'll start potentially running them. But the cool thing is I can still always drop back into my regular flow of opening my editor and seeing all the files that it's editing. And there also is a way to link Claude with VS Code. So anytime there's a potential code change or a new file, you can actually preview it inside of VS Code, so you can use both of them. But this is an example of a CLI tool. A lot of people just spend their days right here just prompting Claude all day long. It creates files all day long. And there we go, it's asking me questions. So what form should this app take? CLI or cron job, web app? Let's build a web app. How do you want to be notified about upcoming games? Not in the terminal. Display it on the page only. No notifications. I don't want it to get too complex. When should be alert? I don't want alerts. What's my prompt? Build me an app that tells me when there's a Rockies game.
Yeah, you may want to double check what app type you selected.
I think I said web app, didn't I? Did I not?
Questions get preset, so you can just skip it. Say
Let's see. Oh, did I? I think I did choose notification. Can I go back? Go back. Ask me again. Who's bored? Okay, cool. So, web app. Yeah, we're gonna chat first. I don't want alerts. I only want a web page that displays the schedule and says if a game is today. Cool. We'll let that churn. But this is an example of a CLI tool, and there are a lot of other ones. And they all have their pros and cons, but a lot of them are essentially tied to the AI provider. So when I'm using Claude, that is using Anthropic. Yes.
Question and maybe
Yeah,
this is
let's-
right. Oh,
yeah.
thank you.
Related to your first audience, related to what you're doing right now, is there any like documentation on like some type of hierarchy or graph of the names of the companies doing which models and which tools you can like have any type of clue of like, there's like a billion different names, you're just like, what is this thing? Who owns it? Who charges? Like,
Does anybody know of one? 'Cause we can just write one right now. But
I was gonna say.
yeah, let's do it. So Anthropic, they own what are typically called the Claude models. Recently, they talked about Mythos, which is going to basically end the world, and then Fable, which was a nerfed version of Mythos that will not end the world. But we can't access these at all because they were declared, what was it, like an export?
National defense,
No,
export control.
Yeah, not just export control.
And from the Claude models, we have Sonnet, Haiku, Opus, and I guess the size of these models are kind of in the name. So like Sonnet, you typically use for like smaller things. It's not as smart. It's a smaller model. It's a lot faster. Haiku, a little bit better, a little bit bigger, a little bit more expensive. Opus, the big boy. And the latest release is 4.8. But 4.5. I don't know if it was the first one, but 4.5 was when it got good. 4.5 was when everybody was like, this is it. But I say all of this because every single one of these, and then like, I don't know what Sonnet is, I think they keep it in line with the others. But we have the provider company, Anthropic. Their set of, I guess, I don't think these are called Claude, are they? Or are they just,
So Claude is the interface typically.
okay, yeah, so,
Marcus Claude Sonic.
okay, so like Claude is oh, you're right, they prefix the name Claude Sonic, Claude Haiku, Claude Opus, okay. But the way to think about this is smaller models, cheaper, a little bit faster, bigger models, bigger, more expensive, a little bit slower.
Haiku's the cheapest one.
Haiku is what?
The cheapest one, the smallest one.
Oh, it is? Okay. Good call. And it's,
So it'd be like a haiku, like.
that makes total sense. A haiku is smaller than a sonnet. Yes. And then the other thing is every few months, these companies will release the latest model, and then you'll see a version bump. And a lot of times with the version bump, you also get a price increase. So that's Anthropic, but we can talk about OpenAI. And this is your ChatGPT. The latest and greatest is 5.5. And then they also have coding-specific models. So there's 5.4 Codex. Did they release 5.5 Codex? No, so it's still 5.4 Codex. And then this is kind of in line. If you remember when ChatGPT launched back in 2022, that was GPT 3.5. Is that? I'm seeing some nods. I'm going to say for the most part, yes. And then a few months later, like, oh, GPT-4 is coming out, and it's going to be the best thing ever. And then GPT-5 is coming out. It's going to end the world. Again, each one of these a little bit more expensive, the latest version. I would say these are the main models that most people use. But there also are models from Google. And that's their Gemini models. I know less about this. Does anybody use the Gemini models? Can you help me name them? What are they?
Like Flash and Pro.
Yes, so they're Flash, Pro. Are there other ones?
There's Nano, which runs in the browser.
Is it Nano Banana or
That's
just Nano? Yeah, and good call though. So these are all usually like text-based models. There's also image models, and so like the Google Nano Banana is their image model. But then you also get into multimodal models. And so I believe, like, can 5.5 create images?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there are some of these that can create text and also can create images.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one that you might see is Cursor has their own model,
Yes.
and Cursor Compose 2.5 is at least equivalent to the Sonnets in my experience.
Yes. And the way to think about this is it is very expensive and time-consuming to create these models. So you're really mainly only going to see them from these very large companies. I guess technically you also have Meta, and they release Llama, but these are all of them open weight? Yeah.
Doesn't the X have one as well?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's the other big company. X or Twitter, they have Grok. Yeah.
Ross the Q's in the chat.
Yes, and so there's the DeepSeek, but then there's a whole category of what we'll call like open weight models, typically from Chinese companies, that a lot of times you can either run on your own machine locally if your machine can support it, or you can spin it up in the cloud if you can like rent a PC that has a GPU on it. There's Kimi, there's mini-apps.
And just the composer is actually a wrapper on GPT.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And so that's how Cursor, a small startup, was able to launch their own model. They basically fine-tuned this open weight model to be specifically for coding. I know this isn't the graph that you asked for, but
No, this is helpful, just at least get more to that.
So this is the prominent.
can you get him the mic? Sorry. Yeah.
If you go to models.lightllm.ai, it's like a boundary list.
Models dot what?
Lightllm.ai.
LIGHT or LIGHT?
LLM.ai.
Yeah. Sweet. Oh, you know what? I think, is there also models.dev? Yes, this one's from OpenCode, but we'll show this one. So. Yeah, endpoints and providers. Yeah, the thing is, like, there's a lot here, but I would say to narrow it down, the big ones are the Claude models, the OpenAI models, the Google models, and then Grok. Everything else is kind of just like noise. They're all trying to be better, but those are the big ones. And like I mentioned, some models are smaller, some models are faster. There's also this idea of thinking. So models will, instead of just immediately giving you an output, they start thinking out loud before they show you their final output. And that thinking mode has there's like low, medium, high, and sometimes somewhere in between. And so if you set thinking to low or off, your model's just going to immediately respond and like start creating files and stuff like that. But if you set it to high, it's going to like churn, and then finally decide to create a file or something like that. Yeah, can you get the like?
Yeah. They also have research models too, right? Is that different than the thinking?
Can you give an example or?
I mean, like ChatGPT has the deep research mode. Whatever that is.
Oh, I think so. The way I understand that is more of a wrapper around existing models. So actually, let's come back to that because that's actually a great topic. Deep research, almost like loops. So that is a tool where you can say, I want to research this specific thing, and it will form a plan, and then it'll go off and just churn for like 10, 20 minutes. It'll search the web, it'll summarize, it'll and then like 10, 20 minutes later, you get a summarized report of all the stuff that it found. But typically the way that's working is it's using GPT 5.5, and then they just have a harness around it that has tools to search the web or gets access to things like that. Yeah. Yes?
Maybe in that same line, put multi-agent, like, I'm thinking of that feedback loop where you can spawn off agents that fight each other or whatever they do.
Absurd.
Yeah.
Let's do like agent orchestration.
There you go. Yep.
But then, there's probably things for adversarial agents. You guys spell that?
Look, I'm gonna use mic. It's really hard to hear.
Yeah, so let's remember to use the mic. But this is good. It's a lot to take in. But I will say, when you're using any one of these tools, you usually have a choice over which model to use, right? And so sometimes you might get mad that like, oh, that output was horrible, or it didn't do what I wanted to do. And a lot of times you either have it on auto mode. And so, for example, in VS Code, this actually defaults to auto mode. And that means it's going to choose which model to use. But if I know that I want the big boy, I want to use Opus 4.8, I can choose that. Now I'm paying more money, but I'm sure that all of my prompts are actually using that model. So that's the other reason you should be somewhat familiar with these is depending on your provider, you can pick and choose. I'll say one more thing and then pass it off. Typically, when you want to get access to these Anthropic models, you have to sign up at Claude.ai. You'll get direct access to those. Same thing, sign up on ChatGPT. You can get API access or Codex access to these. But there are services that kind of wrap access. So VS Code with Copilot in particular actually gives you access to both. So that's why I can see GPT 5.5 and Claude Opus, and that's because Copilot, they do some routing on their backend to sometimes send my requests to OpenAI or send my requests to Anthropic. Go for it.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to make about like bad prompts when things go off, I heard this from Eric Reese, and I completely understand it, is the models build off themselves, even internally to the prompt. And so just like the example we saw where it went off into the notifications, trying to restart with the exact same prompt can sometimes give you dramatically better results. So don't be afraid to retry things before you say, hey, the model doesn't understand what I'm trying to do, let me upgrade to a bigger model.
Yeah, and I think that was a good example of like what I did there. I basically, it was asking me all these questions like, no, this ain't it. And then I refined it with a separate prompt. But honestly, it probably would have been cheaper to start a fresh conversation. One thing you can do in Claude specifically is you can say clear. That gets rid of your entire history, and now I'm starting from scratch. But also I can say resume and go back to what I was at before. But yeah, context management is another thing we'll potentially talk about. Because any place that I'm interacting with AI, so if we look back at Lovable, let's go to Lovable. Where is it? Oh, this one. Right now, on the left-hand side, there are 2 messages. Well, there's probably a lot more than that. It doesn't show me all the intermediary, which is pretty crazy. But basically, my initial prompt, and then all of the stuff that the AI did, it created files, it modified files, etc. All of that is actually in my history, and then its final prompt as well. All of that is the context. And the context is limited. So you can see in VS Code, it tells me that when I choose Opus 4.8, it limits the context to 200,000 tokens. So the moment my prompt goes over that, it has to either summarize or I have to like start from scratch. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. Okay, let's get back on track. Who learned something? Great. That's what we're here for. So those are all the models. And then, like I mentioned, each one of them can be used with particular tools. Now, what else should we talk about before we move on to MCP? Anything else that has sprung up ideas, or does anybody just want to say anything? What over here?
There's no question.
Yeah.
Question for folks who use a ton of AI. I'm kind of like a lazy developer, so I pick one and like, this is great. And the amount of onboarding to get into a tool, I use a couple. So like the big ones, Claude and Codex, right? And I see all these cool tools popping up, all the different models, all the different versions, all the different companies. And I'm wondering, am I supposed to be keeping up with all this? And I'm just curious how other people manage that. If you're often exploring different tools, going breadth, or if you're going deep with a tool or two.
I'll give a few words and then open it up, because I'm sure a lot of people have opinions. But one of the nice things about the Copilot subscription is you do get access to multiple models. And so that's really one of the only reasons I've been using multiple is because I have the Copilot subscription. I will say Copilot is now a whole lot more expensive than it used to be last month because they changed their whole pricing model. And so now I have to decide what I'm going to use instead. Also, my company provides everything. Like my company gives me a Claude subscription, a ChatGPT and Codex subscription, and a Cursor subscription. So like our company is very AI forward, and our CTO, he's not overhyped because like we also have tools to see like are we actually being productive with this stuff, but he wants to see what we can do with it. So working at a company that gives you access to those things is like is another way. But use a tool like Copilot, which gives you access to multiple, and then there's also this thing called Open Router, and you basically put all of your money in here in terms of credits. How much do you want to pay for AI? And then they route your request to certain providers. But they're able to route your request to Anthropic or to OpenAI or to Gemini. And so this is one way to pay in one spot and then try out multiple. The other part of your question is like, how do you find time for all of this? Personally, it's my job to know about this stuff, so like, that's why I do. And I'm just interested in the latest and greatest. But I understand if you have a day job and you got to get work done, like how do you choose? So I'm curious for people that have opinions on that. Can you repeat your question? It was like, how do you stay up to date? How do you choose?
Yeah, and it seems like it's like a marginal difference between if something is
Right.
great is this thing like marginally better or worse? So why should I even switch?
I would actually agree with that. So I will say, I started using Quad Opus 4.6 and then I couldn't use GPT 5.4 at the time. Just own personal preferences. Like I liked its personality better and like it got things right more often. Honestly, it's just vibes. So if you don't think about it too much, just use one of them and you'll be fine. A lot of times people will say like GPT 5.5 is a bit more like serious, like maybe a little less creative, and Opus just gets stuff right in my experience. But we'll open it up.
So to build on your question and part of your response, maybe a little quick vote. How many of you are locked into a specific one because either you're not paying yourself and your company provides it, or you just are chosen and stuck with it, versus you're just all over the place?
So locked in, raise a hand. Wow, so that's like 50% of the crowd. And then who gets to choose or who uses multiple? Maybe 20% of the crowd. Okay.
I think we have another.
But I think it's exactly what Rohit said. If you're in a company that's giving you access to a bunch of stuff, then you're paying it all. Or but then if you're paying for it, it will be all. So that's how I put it.
Yeah.
I use this tool called Olam.
Oh yeah.
So that will allow you to run models locally if you have the right kind of hardware. But Olam also has an online cloud thing as well. A little bit similar to Overground, where you pay Olama for access, and then you can access a bunch of cloud providers. It still uses the local Olama process that you have running on your system in order to do the routing, but then that will allow you to have access to a whole range of different models that you can try.
I see.
And they do allow some amount of cloud usage for free. So you can also go in there and like try it out. It does require like a small install on your local system, but it's pretty well made.
But the local router is free.
Yeah, I was give an idea on what we was right. They are marginally different, and it's just a waiting game because if Claude launches something new today, Meta will launch something in 2 weeks. Google will launch something in a week. So they're all competing with each other. So if you are actually paying for it, then it doesn't really matter. You will find enough video on the internet that will tell you whether it's better or worse. And then you can, from time to time, just switch over to once if you also have to cancel the subscription, switch back to your so like in the IDEs, I think you use anti-gravity as a big one.
Oh yeah, totally right. So oh Zen, yes, totally right.
It's like anti-gravity is from Google, and they give you like a free tier which is pretty generous. So if you're using that, and then if you already got a GPT subscription, between those two, we are covered for the month. For the most part, I would say significantly cheaper than the government.
CA, you brought up an interesting point regarding your company gives you a lot of access to AI tools.
Yes.
One thing you consider for a lot of developers is that if you basically develop on AI tools that your company provides, your company might own your work. You want to definitely check with your company development policies to make sure that if you use their tools, their iTokens, their subscriptions, that they don't basically have access to claim their work, your work, that you offline. Something to consider. So in a couple of companies where I've had people say, oh yeah, I've got access to the cloud tool, I do it for my own personal projects, and the companies come in and say, yes, but we own it.
Yeah, exactly.
So keep that in mind.
I think the same thing apply. Like it's interesting to think about because I have my personal subscription, which is Copilot, so I pay for that, and that's where I'm building all my side apps, and then work pays for all the other tools. But I have had agentic workflows running, building apps on my personal account while I'm sitting at work, and so I've thought about how like. Some companies are like, well, if you develop something on our time, then they own it. My agents were building it. I wasn't doing it, my agents were doing it. But that is, yeah, definitely think about that.
I actually have
Yeah, go for
something to say. I was curious because I know the last I heard about intellectual property law and AI, it was not actually favorable for you owning anything AI generated. Has that changed?
I'm not up to date on the laws, but there are active lawsuits about copyrighted material. Like the New York Times is in a really big lawsuit because a lot of the AI models were trained on their articles and would like spit out things verbatim. But it really comes down to the intellectual property owners and are they doing anything about how AI was used to train. I will say the unfortunate thing about code is I don't know of any big organizations that are trying to fight for, let's say,
Sure.
code that was under an open source license like the GLP, which technically, if you're generating code that was under GLP, maybe your code should be GLP as well. I don't know if they have lawyers big enough to fight for that.
No,
Yeah.
I was just curious, because that's always been one of the things about companies going so all in on AI. And then, but they're gonna run into some intellectual property problems in the long run.
I hope so. I honestly like. It's the one thing that would potentially save us, or one of the things that would save us from being completely overtaken is like everybody gets sued and nobody owns anything anymore. It seems unlikely, but yeah.
I can speak at least to images. Images generated by AI definitely are not copyrightable right now, which is why you will actually see a lot of organizations that were saying, you could not use AI if you are a graphic designer working for us or working on it. So that aspect at least is pretty clear, at least for the moment.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, and on the point of like, I don't know, but like we're part of our own demise, right? Because we put all of our code on GitHub, and then they trained on all that code that was on GitHub. But that is to say, if you're working at a larger enterprise or a larger company that didn't have your code out in the open, there are probably things internally that AI doesn't know how to do or hasn't been trained on as well, and that's kind of where you have to leg up.
And speaking of which, make sure you follow your company's policy because all of these tools will send the data back to the organization, and depending on how much we pay them, you basically give away training rights.
This is a great thing. I just want to take a moment to talk about that because that's why a lot of companies haven't adopted AI yet, because they're worried about the work that their developers are doing being used as training data by these companies. But all of the companies I mentioned, so OpenAI has an enterprise program, so it's a lot more expensive, but when a company signs up, they sign contracts that say, we're not going to train on the data that your employees are using. Anthropic has the same thing. I'll put these under like enterprise. We will not train on your data. But if you get the personal plan, I think there's like a toggle in settings, but I don't know if it's overall. Like there could be some things that say, well, we're going to train on this, but we're not going to train on that. So that's the other thing to keep in mind is when you're using these things, all of your prompts are being sent to these companies, which are then potentially being used to retrain the AI as well.
And I just want to talk about that from a public sector. So I work at a public library, and of course AI and its use in the library is a hot topic for my team. And we can't always afford the enterprise version of these things. So then we're kind of stuck in because there are privacy laws around future data, like we have to be extra careful about what gets swept up by these companies. And so I found it very interesting to interact with this in the public sector.
Yeah. And that does kind of get into more of like the open models. So I have a rig at home where I can run AI inside of my house, and that doesn't leave the network, like it's all internal. Now, some of those models are smaller, they're a little bit dumber, so you can't do as many things, but I potentially see that being the way of the future as well, especially once we get out of, right now, hardware is really expensive because they're building data centers and RAM is expensive, SSDs are expensive. Eventually, all those projects will fail. They'll have a ton of surplus hardware. We'll build rigs really cheap, and then we'll have like a giant GPUs in our basement. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason the question that I don't know if it's covered earlier, but like my question is like, how many of you run self-hosted models versus using cloud services? What are your reasons? Is it cost? Is it privacy, security? And then side note on the enterprise, I don't fully know what I'm talking about, but there might be a way in that realm to run these bigger models locally as an enterprise. Like, I don't know alongside what the limitations are.
It depends on the company. I do believe, so what that means is typically, where this, these people have the secret sauce. Meaning, those models live on their servers, and you typically can only get access to them through API access. They're not going to give you that direct model. However, OpenAI has had agreements with Microsoft and I think like Amazon Bedrock, or like they have some way of running it where their models can be loaded onto some other server and run from there, and then you're basically just paying for hardware instead of paying for compute. But they're the only one that I know of. I believe Anthropic, they own all the servers. Any server that is running a Claude model is an Anthropic-owned server. There's no way for other people to do it.
So actually
You can get the, like, sorry.
So Anthropic is available on Bedrock.
Okay.
OpenAI runs through Azure.
Okay.
And then Gemini is through GCP.
Yeah, Google.
You can get anybody's access to these reports. And then all the open ones is where you come from Bedrock. So each of them, the open ones also show up very well.
Mm-hmm.
But like, these ones are just like limited tie-ups with.
So I looked into this a little bit. I do believe that even though it's on Bedrock, it's still like routed, at least for Anthropic. So like you can access it there, but it still calls their API. I might be wrong, but the main idea is they have their secret sauce. They don't want you running it on your servers for the most part. But like with Bedrock, are you paying direct compute price versus like token price, or?
It's the Bedrock pricing.
Okay.
So it's
Okay. And then you had the question about, so who here is running self-hosted models? One. Okay, can we pass the mic around if you're open to it? What models are you using, if you're willing to say?
Yeah, can you run, one thing to consider though, when you talk about a model, there's two different pieces. There's the algorithm, which does basic computation. And then there's the training weights. Those are two separate pieces. If you're running, you don't really want to say model, in sub-level model. It kind of depends what algorithm you're running and what database equivalent to it as well.
So Kimi K 2.5? Cool.
It sucks up a lot. I have 256 gigs of memory, and it just flat out hammers it all.
Nice.
I use a range, so GPT OSS is a 20 billion model that works really well for local. I use a local version of Gemma 4 made by Google. I've got K27 running local as well. And then a lot of the Qwen 3 coder and its variants.
What was that last one?
Qwen,
Oh, Qwen, yeah.
So Qwen has a number of those. And I actually just yesterday set up something called VLL in the router, which will allow you to build rules that say, it downloads its own sort of initial model for that. And then whenever you run something through that as your router, you can set a rule that says, if I'm asking about coding, route to this model. If I'm asking about something creative, route to that model. And so all of my coding right now is going to like Kimi or Coder. If I'm looking for something creative, it'll go back and forth between the GPT and the general world.
Yes. And then, yeah, what other local models are you running?
Knowing that it's going to be hilariously slow, let's just go through the process that ran. I don't even know what version of Qwen on Raspberry Pi 4.
That sounds impossible.
And it was real slow.
Yeah, like one token per minute.
It was like a thing was
Okay.
created.
Yeah. Did we have someone else that mentioned local models?
Very different, but our company doing healthcare one, so we can send our patient data to our site.
Yeah.
We own the ETX to each 100 server somewhere in there. And I can access that and give some data in the process and make our own models and try to make some local device running like it's quite also try to run some VX up model, but yeah, just and keep something small models.
I see. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other issue with running locally is like typically you kind of can only run some of the smaller models. If you want to run the big models, you need a beefy GPU or a rig that has like 4 or 5 GPUs. This is a whole world to get into. Yes.
Yeah, the other thing is the harnesses are increasingly where a lot of the logic exists too. So a lot of the improvements you'll see are not necessarily in the model, but On topic will have a specific set of prompts that it will run your prompt through in the background, and that's where some of the improvement is also coming from.
Definitely. And so when we say harness, we're talking about even tools like Claude. So like when I'm prompting Claude, there's actually even prompts in the code running locally that will wrap my prompts before they even get sent to Anthropic. So like that's the harness, and you could consider like VS Code a harness as well. It's kind of wrapping your prompts, and then because they own the models or they own the router, they can potentially do things a little bit smarter in terms of where they send the request or adding more context before they do it themselves. Because if you try to just talk to these providers directly and you're not using one of these harnesses, you're not getting that extra like secret sauce.
Well, I think you deserve, you guys are thinking about self-hosting. The power cost is insane.
Yeah.
So running Kimi 2.5 on the two GPUs I have and on the PC is the equivalent of my air conditioner in July.
Yeah.
So spending $200-300 a month running a locally hosted model, you just see that in power.
Yeah. And probably the main benefits are just like privacy and in your own home. But at that point, if you don't care as much about that, you might as well pay like the Claude subscription, the Max subscription.
The flip side of that is you can buy smaller AI rigs. Like I've got a strict Halo system at home. Actually, I've got two of them, 128 gigs of unified RAM, and they max out at 150 watts.
Yeah.
So, and they run almost as well as what my 4090 was doing with way less power. Like it takes 500 watts of power to boot that PC with a 4090, and my whole AI rig runs full tilt at 150 watts and stuff. But you're paying several $1,000s for that machine. But if you're buying GPUs, you're also spending thousands of dollars. So it's an expensive hobby to get into.
It definitely is. I think we'll switch topics because we want to get more into like MCP and stuff like that. But I will let you know I made a video on this. It's on the Syntax channel. If you search for local AI explained, I bought a little Strix Halo machine, like you mentioned, and set it up and got like models running locally. I'll link it in this doc. Because I'll also mention that all of these notes are going to be on the DenverScript GitHub. So I'll add links in here and you can get to the stuff that we talked about. But yeah, I talk about how to get started running this stuff because there's a lot of apps you could use to run it locally as well. But let's focus up. How's everybody feeling? Give me thumbs up, middle, thumbs down. Wonderful. Does anybody want to say anything else before we get into MCP? Let's do it. So we have showed, well, we talked about models. We talked about where those models can run, the harnesses, like whether it's the CLI or whether it's the tools themselves, the like IDEs themselves. But one of the things that can make your prompts better and working with the model better is giving it context. So when you are just talking directly to a model, like let's just consider even something like ChatGPT. If I don't have any web search or any other tools turned on, when I put a prompt in here, that is just talking to the pre-trained model. There's nothing else. Like it doesn't have access to the internet. It's literally just the knowledge that it has itself. If we want to give it more knowledge, whether it's access to docs or access to the schedule for the Rockies game that's coming up, or access to the weather, we can use tools, or one of the standardized ways of doing this is MCP, which is the Model Context Protocol. And they have a website, modelcontextprotocol.io. And the reason they created this specification is because all of the AI providers were coming up with different ways of doing tool calls. Essentially, like when you ask ChatGPT, what is the weather in Denver? I'm curious. I'm not subscribed. I'm curious if it will reach out and use a tool. Yeah, so it's searching the web. This is a tool call. So basically the model responded and said, I don't know, I don't have relevant information, so please call the tool that gives weather with the argument Denver, Colorado. It called that tool, got back today's weather, and then it gave me this nice little card that is today's weather. So it's used a tool. And tools can basically do anything. They can run local processes on your machine, they can reach out to APIs, they can do anything that code can do. So they can send messages, they can send alerts. Literally, if you can write code to do it, a tool can do it. And what the model context protocol does is it's a standardized way of saying these tools are available, and then I can hook these tools into my various, I don't want to say the word tool again, my various AI things. So VS Code, Claude, Gemini, any of those that I'm using, I can hook MCP servers into those. This is the spec, and then I'll show you an example inside of VS Code. So I actually have MCP set up in here in VS Code. If you do MCP list servers, that'll show you everything that you have installed. And then if you go to add server, if you find an MCP server out there on the web, first of all, make sure they're trustworthy. Don't just install anything. But then they'll either give you a manual install or a remote server. You can add it. This was just added to VS Code. This is my first time using it today. They have an MCP directory. So if you go to browse MCP servers, this is just like the VS Code extension store, and it allows you to just directly add MCP servers into either your project or your global settings. So the first MCP server I'll show you is one that gives me access to documentation, and it's called Context 7. And so the idea is like when you're talking with AI, it potentially could use the built-in web search tool and try to find the link to the docs on the web, and then it can visit the docs, and then it can try to pull that in and then give you better results in terms of what you're building. But Context 7 gives your AI direct access to documentation. So if you check out context7.com, you can see all of the stuff that they have indexed, and it's literally everything. Throw out a library name.
MUI v5.
MUI.
v5.
5. It's probably this one, MUI. Which is Material UI for React. That was like the worst example, because I don't know if that's the right one or not. Maybe it is. But for example, React. This will literally pull down the React docs, or Express. Or a lot of various packages that are on NPM will have these docs preloaded in here. And so what you can do is I can start a new chat, and I'll just say, let's build a Hono API. Who does not know what Hono is? That's great, because AI is just going to do it all for us. So I'll say, let's build a Hono API. Let's just plan it. I want to CRUD to-dos. And then at the end of my prompt, I'll say, use context 7 MCP. And because in this folder, I have .vs Code, and then I have this mcp.json, and inside of there, I've configured it to use the context 7 MCP. It now has access to that. So when I send this prompt, it's going to potentially do a tool call to try and get those docs from context 7. And I chose Sonnet, so we'll see if it's able to do it. Yeah, so here it ran resolve library ID. So essentially, it needed to ask context 7, hey, they're talking about Hono. Do you have docs for Hono? That responds with like a list of libraries. From there, they can then query the docs. So they literally just queried the docs for routing, CRUD, REST API, and middleware. And the other thing that Context 7 does is it has vector embeddings for all docs. So it basically has semantic search. So it also searched for CRUD, REST API, JSON, validator, Zod. So it's actively searching the docs before it's going to make this plan. And so now, instead of hallucinating and making up how to talk to Hono, literally in its context, it has the docs that describe how to use a validator, how to set up an endpoint. And so in my context now is all of that. And so the plan that it came up with is grounded in reality instead of just trying to make stuff up, especially if you're using like lesser known libraries. And when you're using it, typically it will ask you, do you want to make this tool call? Are you sure you want to do this? But because I use Context 7 so often, I basically said, allow it all the time. It can't do anything crazy. It literally just retrieves docs. Another really cool MCP server, especially for web development, is the Playwright MCP. So this basically gives tools to the AI where it can open up a browser, visit a web page, click on buttons, basically do what you do, but automated. So I'll say use Playwright MCP, open up DenverScript.com. And it'll make a tool call. Behind the scenes, it's just code. It literally spins up a Chrome browser. So yeah, navigate to URL, look at that. Okay. Let's this, and then that responds back with, this is the current state of the web page. And so now I can ask it more things. I can say something like, click on the news in the nav. And so it'll use its tool. It will figure out where that is. So first it runs a snapshot. So it figures out what's the structure of the page. And then it figured out what's that selector. And now it clicked on the news. Okay, and I'll say, click on the June news. Find the first article, visit it, and write a summary to news.nd. It's going to do all of this. Let's watch it go. So it also has, it's a little bit ambiguous because there's multiple June news. Okay, clicked on June 2026. Is it going to click on void 0? Let's see. There you go. It said the first article is void 0. I will click on it. So now navigating to the URL now can extract the contents of it. It can basically do what you do in a web browser. And then it's going to create the file with the summary. So this tool is fantastic for actually working on features, right? Because you can, of course, this is all, I'll say this is not codified in any way. There's no way to redo this whole workflow without prompting AI a bunch of times. But Playwright is a programmatic tool, so you could actually have a back and forth with the chat window here that says, okay, now that you did that, let's write those steps into a playwright.js file. And so next time, I don't have to prompt AI a bunch. It'll just literally go through the steps. Visit DenverScript.com, click on the link. I will say creating the summary requires AI. So it created news.md and then literally used the Sonnet 4.6 model to find all of the key points and the summary and summarize it. So this part is not deterministic because that actually requires reaching out to an AI to do the summary. But all the other pieces, click, that could be turned into something that's more repeatable. And you can basically go back and forth with AI to have it make it repeatable. But this is also an example of some of the more agentic flows where someone might actually have an initial prompt that, like, your goal is to find the cheapest PS2 on eBay, refresh the page every 30 minutes, and it will, like, that's their plain prompt, and it's just going to sit in the background and do that kind of thing. So MCP tools can do all kinds of stuff. They can get docs, they can navigate browsers, they can get the weather, they can call APIs directly, and you can create your own MCP servers. I'm going to pause here. Any questions before I move on? Yeah.
More of a comment. Sorry if it was seemingly gotcha when I said really deep I, but my context in that question was, I set up context 7 for background. Working jobs where you inherit code bases with older dependencies. There's documentation of both the latest.
Yes.
So I have forced context 7 to create an MCP for specific versions and then have it query that. So that's what I was trying to get.
Okay. No, it's okay. And so is there a way to add new docs? I guess there's like an add docs button.
Docs. I think there's some type of login flow that you can point it to a website even, and so v5.ruby.com, and then it'll scrape that.
And then it indexes it.
Yeah, and then you can set up your context set and config to point to that specific version.
Cool.
And then I was gonna say, we're at 30. organizer thing. We would want to review the list and
I'll say-
prioritize.
Any more questions about MCP, and then we will prioritize after that, absolutely.
It's more of a new question, but you say you use VS Code to install these pre-built MCP servers. Is it literally installing a server, a tiny server that's running on your computer, and when you make a prompt, it will reach out to that server, which will then reach out to you?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you have the perfect idea of it. And the idea is there's two different types of servers. There are servers that run directly on your machine. And so in this case, Context 7 is running on my machine. So it's an npx command with their CLI tool. However, they also have a cloud-hosted one. So if you look on their docs, maybe they don't anymore, but it's also possible to say, use this remote URL, and then it will actually make requests back and forth with that remote URL. But Context 7 is totally local, and so is Playwright. And part of the MCP specification is how do these servers communicate? And one of those is via standard I/O. So this is literally just a CLI that's sitting there, and the chatbot is sending it text, it's spitting text back out. But there is a way to create a web server that creates a persistent connection, and it's just like bi-directional. Yeah. Other questions?
Yeah, you beat me to it. I was gonna say there's offline things.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of them we can maybe go to? GitHub, MCP. It's the MCP registry.
So GitHub is both a local and a remote. You can install it locally from server.
Here we go. api.githubcopilot.com/MCP. So that is what I would put in my config file, and then it would be reaching back and forth to do the tool calls and make the response. Yeah. Others? Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think both, I know Datadog has one, and I think Sentry has one as well.
Yes, so I work at Sentry, by the way. It's an error monitoring platform, but to give you an idea of like what MCP servers can do, so if you set up Sentry on your app in production, this is not an app, I'm telling you how it works. If you set it up on your app in production, anytime an error happens, those errors get reported back to Sentry. So the Sentry MCP server has all of that context. If you log in with the server, it sees your project, it sees all of the errors that have occurred. So you can actually go back and forth with the Sentry MCP that says, hey, list all of my issues, let's work on that issue. It has a history of every time that issue occurred and all of the stack traces. It'll use that as context to try and fix it. So that's an example of like, if you have a company that has data you want to make available, MCP is one way to do it as well. Yeah.
In terms of data security with these things that are using the browser and stuff, like, I don't know if you've seen Clicky, for example, Hey Clicky. It's, you can install it and it'll follow your,
Is it this one?
Hey, H-U-I. But yeah, it's Mac only, and it'll follow your browser around. Yeah, see like that, and then you can voice command it to do things on your computer. I install it, and I'm like, how, I'm logging into my bank account. Is it checking my password and attacking it sort of thing?
It could be. And so, I mean, again, the whole conversation we just had was like professional, using this for development. People use it for like local agentic flows as well. I'll say I don't want to get into that here because we're going to keep it like dev, but the whole OpenClaw, and there's also like Hermes. These are personal local agents. You basically give them access to your email, to your, like you can run an agent or run a daemon on your computer that's taking screenshots and like it knows your history of everything you did. All of the same thing we talked about in terms of data security, like if it makes a prompt or it sends off a prompt with a screenshot in it to OpenAI, OpenAI just got a screenshot of your bank account details. So all of that same stuff applies. And it is, yeah, something to keep in mind as well. But that's another caveat is like just be very particular about which MCP servers you decide to install, because as you've seen, these MCP servers have access to my chat window, which means they have access to my AI subscription, which means they could go rogue and like use up my tokens and stuff like that.
I was going to ask about the cost impact of using it.
Yeah, and that really gets into token usage. So I talked about earlier about like context. How much context am I using? And so if we look in, like this is the full chat history of visit DenverScript.com, click here, do this, do that. All of that's in the history. All of that is context usage. So you can see, where can I? Bottom. Oh, here we go. So right now I'm at 12% usage of my 200,000 token window. So this is what you would keep an eye on. Go ahead.
For us AI noobs, how much money? Can you tell us how much money that is?
Well, right now I am paying usage based, or I have a bank of credits that this taps into. But in layman's terms, this window right here used 31.2 thousand tokens. And the model that I was using is Claude Sonnet 4.6. So if you're paying token-based pricing, we can look up the Claude pricing. And then we want API pricing. Because the API pricing will usually be priced per million tokens. And so with Sonnet 4.6, it's $3 per million tokens. I don't want to do the math, so I'm going to ask AI to do it. Oh no. So if the price is, and I used, what was it?
31.2K.
31.2 tokens, how much did it cost? And this is if I were paying token pricing. So this would be 10 cents for, which honestly, not worth it. I would not pay 10 cents to visit DenverScript.com. But another aspect of these pricing is, so I'm not paying that because I have a Copilot subscription. And they basically give you a bank of credits that you use I pay $40 a month, get a bank of credits, and until that is gone, I don't have to pay anything. And so what I just did was included in that usage. But that's basically the maths you would have to do. Look up the price per million tokens. You can see how many tokens you use. One more thing. There's also this idea of cached tokens. So if I send another prompt, the backend, and Anthropic's backend has already cached these tokens, so it doesn't have to re-embed, which means the next request will be a little bit cheaper. Basically, you pay it once and then they cache it for like 24 hours. But I would be paying for the amount of tokens for the prompt I just sent and the amount of tokens for every single token in its response. Okay, let's lock in. We got 22 minutes. Where do we want to go? So MCP servers, great. You can build your own. You can ask AI to build it for you. Pass it the context 7 docs for model context protocol, and it'll just spin one up. Are you going to tell us where to go, or are you going to tell us?
Oh, no, actually, well, I was just going to say, since we're talking about MCP, I actually just finished making, so I've been building a SaaS for the last couple months, and I just made a MCP server to access it. So it's a scheduling app, so basically boring people that are managing staff can go and just generate schedules.
I see.
Because like the UIs for these scheduling apps are kind of janky, and I was all like, I can't do anything to make this better. So talking to normal human language seems like the easiest way to speed up the flow.
Nice. I think that's one good example of useful uses of MCP, right? Like you have a service, you want people to be able to interact with it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was just thinking also going back to the security on it. I actually spent quite a bit of time trying to set up the OAuth handshake. And so far, only Swan.ai seems to support making it very easy to do this.
Yeah.
I just tried also testing out with Gemini and ChatGPT, complete nightmare, and Gemini claims that I can't do it at all, and ChatGPT was just, I don't know, I couldn't figure it out. So.
Yeah. There are frameworks for it. So I will say Model Context Protocol, they have a package directly. Like if you search Model Context Protocol on NPM, there is the official, whoa.
CSS
Oh, you know what? I bet it's because they wanted to do the bot thing. But this is the official from them. But there's a few SDKs that make it a little bit easier. Does anybody know them off the top of their head? Because I'm blanking.
literally it's not one that you were just looking at.
So there's higher level wrappers. I'll think of it and I'll add it to the sheet here. Yeah, because basically I believe Vercel, their AI package has a way to do MCP, the AI SDK, and it potentially has stuff in there for doing auth that might make it a little bit easier, but that's something else to look into. Higher level packages instead of just the core one. Okay. We have these other potential topics. Skills. I'll give you a high level of what each of these are, and then we'll do a group poll of what we should go into for the last 20 or so minutes. Skills are markdown files that describe some sort of expertise. So you can have a skill file that's really good at testing, or a skill file that's really good at writing front-end material UI code. And basically that markdown file has all of the things that it should know, including links to docs and gotchas and stuff like that. You can also have skills for security review, different things like that. They're basically markdown files that other people maintain that you can bring into your projects. That's skills. There's this idea of spec-driven development. And this basically takes plan mode. So I think we actually didn't execute the plan. I showed plan mode here in Claude, but I never actually executed it. But let's just say, okay, let's do it. And now that will take the plan and start executing.
You just gave me your big gift for
I did. Again, I did not review the plan. I didn't review the plan. But it's got a pretty good plan. I found an API to talk to, which is good. But spec-driven development takes that to an entire extreme, where you can basically have a prompt, and then it breaks it down into user stories, and then acceptance criteria, and also like architecture. So you can basically take some seemingly simple prompts and really break them down into more detailed work that the AI agents can do. That's spec-driven development. Then there's just the general idea of agents. Like technically, when I am chatting in this window and it's creating files, that's an agent. Like it is agentic. It can do what it wants as long as I approved it. But there are also agentic workflows outside of this that you could just write yourself. Like, I mean, as an example, I could literally take this whole flow of visit this website, click this link, do this thing. I could put that into a script, run it on a server 24/7. Now I have an agent running in the background all the time. And there's a lot more to think about there and other ways to do things, including these like self-hosted or these personal local agents like Hermes or OpenClaw, which basically just run autonomously and do stuff on your behalf. So I think these others, I think we kind of already talked about deep research. So we have three options. We've got skills, spec-driven, or agents. Who wants to talk about skills? One. Okay. Who wants to talk about spec-driven development? Everybody wants to talk about agents, I'm guessing. Okay. Well, this is the thing I know the least about, so I'm going to lean on your expertise. I gave you the basic definition. I mean, the way that the simplest definition that's not hype-driven is it's a cron job. It is a server-side process that just runs 24/7, except you now integrate with AI services, so it can do things that are non-deterministic, like visit this page and figure out if there is something on it, versus writing an exact script that always expects that thing to be there on the page. So those are agents. There's a few different agent SDKs. One was just launched by Vercel. Let's see. Go ahead. Well, I'm typing.
So there's actually an interesting article by Langchain on agents. This is for cognitive architecture.
What is it?
Cognitive architecture. So this came out a few years ago. Not 2 years ago.
Component? Okay, sorry.
It's called Langchain blog. Cognitive architecture.
Did I type it right?
Yeah, this is read the rest of it.
We'll search Google. I'm not doing that.
That was.
Okay.
And then scroll down, there's a diagram on this.
This one?
Yes, so this is interesting because the definition of agents kind of evolved over the last 2 years. And then a lot of our teams building agents kind of slowed down because they kept doing the wrong thing and calling it agents. So now everyone wants to build an agent, but then they confuse agents with process automation. Because by default, when you try to solve a problem with AI, you think in stages and you build in those same stages. Because a lot of the SDKs that we'll talk about in a second force you to build in those stages. But agents don't really work that way. The whole idea behind agents is to give that freedom to choose and like take a path to do it. So this kind of explains that very well as to where does the developer stop and where does the machine take over. And the broader you go for the machine and cycle from the loops that you mentioned is agent. Anything below that is non-agent. So this it's an old article, but it fits really well, and we're seeing it evolve like every day.
No, that's great. I think if you think about what I was just doing up here, I'm probably level 2 or level 3, where it's like I'm in control, but every now and then I tell it what to do, it goes off, it comes back, it checks on me, and then I have to sit here. But I can't sit here 24/7, so there are ways of basically creating automated programs that can do that similar flow, but still allow it to use its AI-ness and that it can decide what to do instead of me having to tell it ahead of time. Yeah, I'll link to this doc. Thank you for that. Does LangChain have an agents SDK?
Back off.
LangGraph, okay. Agent orchestration framework. I will say, the more you get into this, the more salesy the websites get. I will say, LangChain is a good one. Like it definitely looks like a sales landing page, but it's an open SDK, and they have a lot of built-in tools for doing things like retrieval augmented generation. But then the whole idea of like why you would want an SDK for your agent is to have durable execution, where you can say like, do this one step, and if that step fails, try again in 10 minutes, or try this instead. And then when that's done, pass this data on to the next step, etc. If you try to code all of that by hand, it's going to get really monotonous, so like lots of try catches and stuff like that. So things like LangChain, there's the Vercel agent SDK. This just launched like this week. That's not it. Is it? Maybe it's just built into their AI SDK? Cool. And so this is an example of using their SDK to set up the agent, and this is an agent that gets the weather. And the way this is actually funny that the way it gets it is by asking AI and giving it access to a tool. If I were building this, I would just call the API directly. But basically, you can set up this flow, like what tools does it have access to? And adding these tools is very similar to adding an MCP server in your dev config, but you're giving this agent access to various tools. And then there are basic like executions that it can do as well. The one I have looked at before is the Cloudflare. Cloudflare agents. And you will see a lot of these products from companies that have backends that you can host on, right? So Vercel has a backend that you can deploy to, and so it's in the interest of their business that you have an agent running 24/7 on their servers, so they have an SDK that will help you set that up. Similarly, Cloudflare has an agent SDK, and one of the cool things I liked about it were its workflows or let's see. I guess maybe you combine it with it, because Cloudflare also has a workflow SDK where you can actually define these steps of like, try this thing, if it fails, try this next thing, and you can plug agents into that. I'm floundering, so I'm going to open it up to the crowd. Who wants to say anything about agents? or ask questions.
Yeah, more questions.
Okay.
I generally stick to, in that diagram, like level 1, level 2, being in control and asking AI what to do and being in control of steps and the output, especially working on production code. And I'm just curious, I've watched videos of people setting up multi-agentic workflows that communicate with each other and do all this cool stuff and build apps. I'm actually curious, like, trying to find a way to word my question. Is there, are people really building like meaningful, applications with multi-agentic flow? Because I'm just curious if it's something I want to dive into, or if it's still maybe kind of a niche thing for hobbyists who want to build cool stuff, but don't stuff that really doesn't get real traffic.
Yeah.
I'm trying to word this in the nicest way possible, but
No, totally.
yeah.
I think that's the. I think you have something. So I'm gonna add some comments and then we'll pass it over here. But I'll let you handle it. I have done agentic flows like that, and the way that I got them to work and not just pray that the code works is it's agents verifying agents verifying agents verifying agents. So like basically I have tons of skills. I have a code review skill, I have a code simplifier skill, I have a code security skill, like a code security review skill, a code-based standards skill. And so I would have one agent implement the feature. And before that, I would use spec-driven. So that basically breaks down what I'm doing into 30 different separate tasks in detail. So that way each detailed task can be passed off to an agent. And then that agent will implement, he passes it off to the code simplifier, make sure like remove any redundant code, passes it off to code-based standards, he makes sure that, I say he, I guess stop saying he, they make sure that it adheres to code-based standards, they pass it off to, you can even have like a test expert. The other aspect of, in my experience of getting it to work is it has to write tests. Like basically everything is test-driven because if it can't validate itself, it can't say that, oh, I'm done implementing this feature, it's done. So implement, test, validate, security review, code-based standards review, and then you can even have a merge review agent. And then when he's done, it gets merged in, moved on to the next task. So I have experience doing that, and it wrote production level code, but it's really expensive. Like it's uses so many tokens, and that's probably what people do, like they don't want you to hear is like, oh yeah, it works, but it's very expensive. I'm sure there are ways of doing it that use less tokens, but in my experience, that's how you get good code out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a few projects like that. What we found, we were doing in Solutions 1, it's subject to model code. So we're talking about creating models.
Yeah.
You have to re-verify your agentic workloads.
Yeah.
When they go off the rails, they're almost impossible to debug. Unless you basically have a lot of logging, you start going through all the outputs, you'll never throw the problems. And it's very hard to do it. So I would say don't. It's much easier to do something like process manager or workflow, and just use strategy back for that kind of stuff rather than I was.
Yeah, I'll say I hit the sweet spot of GitHub Copilot was super cheap. Opus 4.6 had just come out, so it was really good. And so like I had workflows running like 8 hours overnight, like in March. Now I don't have any because it's more expensive. Basically all the side projects that I wanted to build, I kind of built them out then. Yeah.
I was just gonna say my experience is pretty similar to yours.
Okay.
Very spec-driven, very testing. And then you need all of those skills to overlap, and so it's very expensive very quickly.
Definitely. And I would say like if you're looking for tips to walk away with, like either learn how to do test-driven development or ask your agent to do test-driven development for you, because that's the best way for it to actually be really close to what you wanted it to build without saying, hey, I'm done. Because every day, like if you prompt agents a bunch every now and then, oh yeah, I finished, but like, did you do this? Did you do that? If it's writing tests and you're making sure those are good tests and those tests pass, then at that point you can say it's valid.
It's kind of funny how your workflow just kind of reverted back to waterfalls.
Yeah.
Literally 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Most of the whole agile process of trying something to get feedback, making an iteration, trying to get feedback. So it's kind of, well, your agent can loop and do that kind of stuff too, but now you're running like 2 or 3 times as many tokens on top of the really expensive token usage that we're using.
You're totally right, because it's basically flipped the problem. Like, if I want someone else to do all the work for me, I have to do the planning. Like, I have to be the one to say, this is what I want to build, and this is how I want it to be, because otherwise the agents are going to go off and do whatever they want. So you're absolutely right. Basically, I'm the manager now. I'm the waterfall, like, do weeks of planning. Yeah. We have one, and then we'll come here.
Where are you humaning?
Yeah, no, it's a great point.
Within all of it, right? Because I mean, we have it on the right. Like you were talking about your skills, your spectrum-driven development. Like you could have AI figure all that out for you, right? Like use all these skills, write the spec for you. Like, are you just a manager now? Are you just reviewing AI work?
Yes and no, but I will say, because I am the person that wanted these things to exist, right? They're basically like side projects, frameworks that I've always wanted to exist, but I've never had the time to work on. Yes, I'm the manager, but I have a vision, right? And I think that's the one piece why there's still a human in the loop, is like, I have to be the one to ask AI to do it versus AI going and doing everything itself. But absolutely, I am now more of an orchestrator. And I think that's a separate skill set to learn, is like, it's like managing people, but now you're managing agents. And so, yeah.
So I have a couple questions. One of them is about I have friends who worked doing spectrum development. They have a really full tested rate. But occasionally, in order to make sure the tests are passing, the AI is going to talk to it sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like, it's not saying shit. It's not one line that makes it so it passes. It's kind of telling that, most people are seeing having great success with AI have been senior advantages already. I would consider myself more like early mid. And for me, I think a big part of it is like, I just don't feel like I have the skill set to do pretty good audits and good reviews on what's being output.
Yeah.
I'm spending more time than I would have been to just write it myself. So, I would love to hear from you learning. What are some, I don't know, I don't have an experience about LLMs, but, what are some of the possible help for upskilling juniors who don't have the skills to be a senior developer managing a team of developers, whether those are human or LLM developers?
That's a great point. I'll let other people talk if you have opinions.
I think your point is valid. I heard somewhere someone give input that for things that we know about, when you have an LLM, you're like, oh, that's okay, it's kind of bit, but if you don't know about it, you're like, that's amazing, because you can't actually audit it.
Yeah.
But I think one amazing thing I'd say about AI is just the fact that it's a tool that can actually teach you how to use it.
Yeah.
And so I think if you also slow down, like read it, and you have it explained to you, I think that's an amazing thing.
Definitely. I'll add on to that. Like I heard this last week. Sounds like I'm gonna say something profound. It's not. It's just if you already have the feeling of like, I don't feel like I know this stuff, or I don't feel like I can validate it, that's good, because you haven't given in yet to let AI do everything. And I would say like, let those feelings guide you. Like, especially like if you want to do spec driven or you want to learn more about testing, like get like the book on test driven development, and practice that. And of course you can ask AI to find resources for you or to do it for you as well. But I think having that urge to make sure things are still right and that you still know what's going on is a good thing. So like, don't lose that, because that's what keeps our humanity. That's what keeps us growing and it prevents us from getting to the point where AI is doing everything. Yeah. Other thoughts? Yeah, and we only have like a minute or so left, so let's wrap it up. Yeah.
I just wanted to answer on that. Like, I've used it in the code review process, like where AI was first getting introduced to a company that I was at before.
Yeah.
And, before GitHub added their AI review or whatever, where I wrote code, and then I asked it to explain the code because I knew a senior developer was going to ask me why I chose to use certain libraries. And in the process, I learned how to use those libraries. So it was really cool, sort of like student teacher, for the AI being both student and teacher, I guess.
Absolutely. I think as much as you can, use it to validate, but use it to learn. Don't just accept everything it outputs. Okay, we're out of time. Any last thoughts? Anybody just want to say something before we go? Yeah, last words right here.
I was just saying, if you can just add 2 more keywords there, which we can go back and ask AI to explain.
Sure.
There's plugins. And then there is, just offered for.
Plugins for specific tools or
Cloud plugins.
so plugins? Ah, yeah. Okay. This would be very similar to skills.
It's broader than that. But hooks is another one. Hooks, Cloud plugins. Not just Cloud hooks, like agent hooks is there a lot of is a big one.
Okay.
Similar with agent processing. I had one more in mind.
Last one, right?
No, this is the cool organization. If you want to throw your wrap up, and then we can encourage people to go to Rhino and Mark Brewery next door.
Let's do it. I will say, don't forget Lightning Talks next month. So this is going to be on July 28th in this exact room. Please submit DenverScript.com. I want to hear about what you're working on, what you're interested in. We'd love to have a talk from you. Thank you all for being kind and courteous. And who learns something tonight? Nice. Love to see it. Okay. That's all I got. Anything else?
I hope you get to pizza. Please take them.
Please take the pizza. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you.